Hi, Leon. How are you?
Hi, Sonia. Nice to be here.
It's nice to be here Friday morning. Such beautiful weather outside. But we're here for a different reason. And we
Yes,
are here to share more information on why this workshop is really, really important, especially for leaders. But I think everybody's a leader, don't you think?
yes, absolutely. We lead in so many ways daily. First of all, we have to lead ourselves, and that's a
That's,
hard task sometimes.
that's an important point, is that
Yeah.
we need to be in our own leadership, in leaderships in our families, wherever we are. We essentially
Yeah.
are leaders. So when we discuss leadership, we're talking about leadership for everybody, but also for executive leaders. So it's
Mm.
inclusive of all leadership. So what I'm going to do
That,
is I'm going to share screen, and then we take it from there. Looking at the workshop that we're going to host, in person and online. So today I want us to talk about um, this workshop, whether we do it in person or online. The information is basically the same. Don't you agree?
yeah, I think it's completed. And I like the title because it leads us to discover something that we don't know, but not only something we don't know, something meaningful that we can apply to change in our lives, to the things that don't work so well anymore.
So I think that people have maybe a question around what does your inner child have to do with leadership? And I think that's the question that I would like to explain more today. How do you feel about that?
I think that's spot on. Totally.
Because I know when I go into my inner child, as my inner child is a little bit of a wounded child, and therefore my experiences in childhood would be different to somebody else's experience in childhood. But the first key that we look at is, how did we get to where we are? How did we get to the success that we have in life? And with all the wounds that we have anyway. Then comes the question, why do we want to heal those wounds if we have had all the success anyway? And I think this is where it goes. Your wounds go with you, they don't go away. And therefore, we have leadership styles that are in our pattern. And as a leader, we say, I am who I am, take me as I am. But it may work for you as the leader. My question is, does it work for the people around you? What's your answer on that?
I think that what I like about this slide is that it gives us also an idea of how we can detect what our woundedness is all about, and where in our childhood and our first experiences in life that something got stuck, got frozen, got put on hold, like a computer screen will freeze. Sometimes in our childhood, something freezes up and then we were too scared to let it go. So, therefore, a self centeredness or a difficulty to receive feedback from others or a lack of empathy, all of those little phenomena in our behavior patterns starts to occur based on those first childhood experiences.
And I don't think we're consciously aware that we have these leadership patterns because this is our norm, this is what we know. I don't think we are aware that somebody else may not agree with these patterns that we have. So if we look at the patterns, the behavior patterns, and I'm going to try and get this out of the way, and I can't. No, sorry.
Mm.
So I can't move this out of the way. Um, so the behavior patterns that we have that lead to our leadership styles. So our behavior patterns are, I'm defensive. You tell me something, nope, I'm defensive. And often we see this in team leaders where they get some information and they say, but, or we put the blame onto somebody else. And these are patterns or behavior patterns that we actually carry. Which one do you want to pick out, Leon?
Well, I think lack of self-awareness is one of the things that can cause a lot of havoc in our experience. When we're not aware about what we're doing, we actually just think everything is okay. I'm the leader of the team. They should do what I'm saying. And there's no openness to how my behavior and my responses impact on the rest of the team. So one of the benefits of this workshop, I think, definitely, is to bring a lot of self-awareness in about my behavior and the impact of my behavior, not only on the team at work, but also in my relationship, to my behavior towards my kids, the dismissive style that I sometimes adopt, and so on. But I think self-awareness is a big thing that can unleash a whole lot of others.
I love the one, judgment and intolerance is getting irritable, getting, just, why can't you just do things? And we often judge ourselves and others, but let's take it into the workplace. Is we have a certain expectation of the people that are working for us, and when they don't deliver, it creates an injustice in us. So, and that is, how do we handle it? When I, as a leader, am totally intolerant, so we shouldn't have emotions in our workplace, but we do, because at the end of the day, everybody that's in the workplace is human. Any
Sonia,
other
what do you?
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about the difficulty building authentic relationships in a workplace? What is your take on that? What's your perspective on that?
Often in a workplace, we have a mask on because we're there to do a job, and we come in to just do a job, do what we need to do, and we don't build relationships with our teammates or with others because we need to hide something. Now, it can have two senses. It can be one of, I'm an introvert and therefore I don't really need a lot of relationships. But even as an introvert, you connect with one or two people and build authentic relationships. So that's not always the case. But when I don't want to share who I really am, because there may be shame involved, there may be, I need to hide something from you, and so that normally goes with the difficulty of building authentic relationships.
Definitely. And do you think these are isolated phenomena, or do they have all kind of a matrix linked together with each other?
I think they're linked with each other. We never have only one behavior, but we have several behaviors, because certain different situations create different behaviors, but some behaviors are more pronounced than others.
Yeah, I will agree with you. And one could use the metaphor to say that all these paths perhaps lead to one Rome, and that would be what? That will perhaps be the inner child, wouldn't it?
Well, that is what we say, and that is why we put this program together. But let us look at it. What is the inner child? Where does the inner child start? And you and I in the systemic world understand that every child has a family system. And the family system is always the father's family system and the mother's family system together. Whether a child grows up within that family system or not, that family system is already in the child. And yes, we do recognize that environment matters as well, but for our purpose today, we will look at the family system. So in the family system, we have certain things that happen because as every child in that family system, because remember, before you become a father or a mother, you were already a child, and there are certain messages that are already in the family system. And these messages are in the system before our existence. So it could be that there is a lot of anxiety in a family system, and we don't know what. We can say, you need to always protect yourself, and we don't know why. Where do these messages come from? Where do these messages originate? And that is where the systemic work becomes so interesting, is because it doesn't start with the inner child. It actually starts before the inner child. So in the family system are already all these, what we call it, characters, or you have a better word for it,
phenomena.
Phenomena and archetypes are already in the family system.
Yeah.
And they all jump around in both family system. It's not just one in the fathers and one in the mothers. They're all around. They're common. So these are all human and common phenomena in the system. And they each have their own voice, and they each have their own behavior patterns. So behavior patterns are learned from the environment, but they're also inherited. And we don't often understand that. So then what the inner child takes on are these patterns from the family systems, these voices that are already existing in the system. And then the child has a choice. Wanted to come in there.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I'm curious at this point to understand with clarity. And every time we talk about these things, we both together, we learn new perspectives. But how does these voices, do they get institutionalized or entrenched into the child's potential behavior? Or is it a memory that gets transferred via the DNA? What's your take on this?
I believe it's DNA memory, and also let's look at it. You with your parents and how you grow up with your parents, you hear and the information is reinforced for the little child. So if there is a parent that is very judgmental, the child needs to avoid that judgmental parent. Or if there is a parent that is constantly on the lookout, constantly hypervigilant, the child also needs to be constantly hypervigilant. But then the child creates survival mechanisms. And let's start with it. The child is perceived innocent when it is born. But very soon, because of the inherent behavior patterns already in the child then takes on and needs to survive these behavior patterns. So it then develops its own behavior patterns around that. I'm surviving. Or the child can say, I'm going to go against this pattern. So the child either goes with the pattern or against the pattern. And so how does the child find its own inner strength? Because let's face it, each of these voices have already been survivor patterns.
Yes, beautiful. And sometimes a child is then labeled as a rebel because it goes against the patterns, or it gets labeled as, oh, you just agree with everything. You just, so easy to work with. You're so easy to love because you agree with it.
Yes.
I think Jordan Peterson talks about agreeability and disagreeability. that we all carry that potential in us to be agreeable or disagreeable, but that actually are the poles that forms our personality and the authentic expression, as you said earlier on, by the level of disagreement or agreeability.
Absolutely.
But I think one of the things that maybe is most common under people that I find in my coaching practice and also in the family constellation practice is the handling of conflict. What's your take on conflict patterning, avoiding conflict, avoiding the capacity to handle conflict in a healthy and constructive way?
Ooh, this is my favorite. I'm such a conflict avoider. And this is avoiding the conflict makes you what we call the pleaser, and you and the avoidance pattern, or the it's called the fawner, the person who just falls in, tries to make everything right, and there's a strength in it. So we need to look at everything has a strength. So my avoidance is because I get out of danger. So it is my way of not confronting issues. But then there's a negativity to it, because a negativity to it, it leads to self-sabotage, it leads to not taking on the jobs, it leads to all sorts of behaviors in me that are not moving my life forward in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe that survival skill holds up for a while, but then some other time life is a very good teacher. It confronts us with things that we cannot avoid anymore, and then we have to dig deeper and find a deeper inner strength in order to confront things that are continuously repeating itself as a pattern.
Absolutely. So now we get going to the inner child. So the inner child's conflicts, therefore, is I don't know how to make decisions. I don't have self-awareness, especially if I'm a avoider. I have no awareness of self because I'm so focused on everybody else. I can't have personal boundaries because I allow everybody else to invade my boundaries. And as an avoider, I would not express my true feelings and thoughts because that would be creating conflict. And therefore, I don't think the relationships would then be authentic. And that's where we started in, it was a question you asked earlier. It is, I'm avoiding something, I'm hiding something, I'm not confronting what you want me to confront, or I'm not willing to confront it with you.
So in relationship, it then appears that this person is not fully present or fully available in this relationship. Something is on reserve, something is held back. And of course, in intimate situations and in confrontational situations, it then appears that this person cannot be trusted because it's not fully authentically present in the conflict situation.
Yes. And so the inner child always needs to protect itself. So, and that protection mechanism worked for the child at the time because the child had no self-authority. But if I'm an adult and I still have these voices in my head and I still need to protect myself, how can I be fully engaged in life and have everything that I deserve? So the inner child patterns basically create the behaviors which create the leadership style. And we started with the leadership style. So what is it that we want? What is it that we want to develop from this workshop is a new leadership style. With other words, being aware of what is the voice of my inner child And how can I create a leadership style from that, which is better for myself, plus the people around me? And this is not about pleasing the people around me. It is about being authentic in who I am, standing in my truth, and then being able to give that forward. So it's not a confrontational leadership, it's a leadership where my truth is not from the inner child, but my truth is from the values that I now develop in my way forward.
Yeah. Beautiful. And also think one could say and ask the question, and rightly so, so why this workshop now? Why is it? And I think as I ask the question, I'm thinking about the context that we are finding ourselves in the world right now. It's post-COVID, it is load shedding in South Africa. There's so many things in our context of being that is pressing us towards, can we discover some innovation in ourselves, some newness, can we reboot this computer of human awareness so that we can discover new ways of doing things, because the way that we do things right now is not working out. Something else is required. And I think that understanding that the inner child part of us is holding us back because it's not unleashing um, the innovative capacities in ourselves completely, because it's on hold. That is why this work is so needed now, to go beyond our old pattern of thinking.
I think I want to add on to it. We have never been more vulnerable than we are right now. We have never
Absolutely.
been in the pressure cooker that we are now, especially here in South Africa, but I believe it's in the rest of the world as well. We have so many daily challenges that we have to overcome. And it makes us vulnerable. It makes us feel helpless. It makes us feel like, where do I go? And what happens is we instantly go back to this childhood behavior that we have experienced, because that is what's really at play. And so if we watch people interacting with one another, you can actually see the inner child acting out with each other. Look at relationships, the inner child acting at each other. I'm looking, when I look at relationships, all I see is the inner child is not coping. The coping mechanisms for the inner child is not working, especially not with the coping mechanisms of the other inner child. And so we have these clashes of the inner children that actually now don't have survival patterns that are healthy. And that's really, I think, what we need to do, is to create new survival patterns. And we can only create them when we become aware of where did these patterns originate, what are the wounds that created these patterns, why do we have these negative self-talks with ourselves. And so when we strengthen that inner child into gaining the maturity that it needs to overcome the challenges that we have today, I think that is the aim of this workshop.
Absolutely.
So I think everybody who's not here would lose out. And I think you would like to be interested more in this workshop.
Yeah.
All those of you who really are sitting on the fence, should I, shouldn't I? It's so much time. Well, really, 3 days of your life to create the strength that you need in this vulnerable time, I think is the best investment you can make in your life. What do you think, Leon?
Well, I think it's a perfect ending to our short little discussion, but of course there's much more to say. I just want to say that sometimes the computer or the iPad or the phone needs to experience what is a hard reset. And I think this workshop offers a hard reset for our potential to be unleashed. And so we can expand on that a little bit more in follow-up conversations. But for me, that is it. Let's reboot this beautiful mind-body system, reboot it to unleash its full capacity and to flourish.
Absolutely. It's an experience you don't want to miss. I don't think anybody should want to miss it. And we look forward to facilitating this amazing journey with you because, yeah, I don't think you'll be the same afterwards.
Great.
Thank you, Leon, for sharing this journey with me today. And yeah, we've got so much to offer. And it's not about you and me, what we can offer. I think it's about understanding how to actually understand that the system is bigger than me, but yet I have the choice to heal, even if the system is bigger than me.
Thank you, Sonia.